We're learning the Sikha on Chof Teves and Chelek Tezayin on page 41. This Sikha here will discuss the Avodas Hashem in our generation. Many times we look at our Aveda, our level of serving Hashem, comparing to earlier generations. At best, it's a mediocre Aveda. We can't at all rise to the level of Avodas Hashem that there was in earlier generations in many different ways. And we look at our Aveda as sort of b'diavad. We're doing our best possible in the circumstances that we're in. Here, based on an unbelievable Rishima that the Alter Rebbe wrote right before he passed away, we'll get a completely fresh look on what the value and what the special connection there is in the Avodas Hashem, specifically in our generation, in the later generations before Mashiach comes. The shir today is being learned l'nishmas Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rabbi Menashe Koltman. As then da zwei inyane Teire, there are two subjects of Teire, welche sind zu uns der Gangen from those that have reached us, was man weiß, as the Alter Rebbe hat sie geschrieben, Karev l'zman hestalkusse, that we know that the Alter Rebbe wrote them very close to when he passed away. Aleph, the first is the Igeres v'seiptzechan Iyu v'chayei chad. There's the letter which begins with the words Iyu v'chayei chad, which is printed in Igeres HaKadosh and Siman Chof, which the Rebbe shortly will bring what that Igeres discusses. Beis, the second is the Rishime Nefesh HaShvele. There's a note that the Alter Rebbe wrote, and it's headed as it's called the Rishima of Nefesh HaShvele, V'zeh l'sheine, and the Rebbe here quotes this Rishima word for word. It doesn't read so easily. It's not so clear exactly every single word how to translate this and what the meaning is. I'll try my best to translate this Rishima here. Nefesh HaShvele be'emes la'amitoi b'sharsha. The lowly soul here in this world, which is truly low in its source, from where it comes from. In other words, the fact that this is a low soul is not just the way it is in its behavior in this world because of whatever circumstances it encountered or experienced in this world, but because of its shaydish. The neshama comes from a place that it's really a lower shaydish, and therefore it has this kind of aveda based on this kind of a nefesh. And therefore, avedasa hi teire gashmiyim. It serves Hashem in this world with teire, learning Torah, but what kind of a level of learning Torah? Torah related to the Gashmias of the world, meaning that his motive in learning or his involvement in learning is coming from a place where the physicality of the world is really something that means something to him, and therefore he relates Torah to that kind of a life. Bein la achedim, whether it's for himself, whether in relating to others, Ubein gemilas chasadim gashmiyim, and also when it comes to gemilas chasadim, as far as giving and sharing with others, it's also gashmi as the gemilas chasadim. It's also involved with the more physical, material lifestyle. Al yedei kirev adas, by having to be involved, very closely involved, or ve'etzis mirachaik, or at least giving advice from a distance, b'chol inyane b'nei beisai, in all kinds of matters of a person's family and house needs and so on, paying the bills or whatever else it may be, which is all material things in a person's life. Af kirubam kikulam hem divrei sheker. And most of this involvement and things that a person is occupied and busy with are matters which are absolute falsehood, things that are not infused with godliness and meaning, but it's things of falsehood. And the life of a person is in such a way that it's basically impossible otherwise. This is the shaydish of his nefesh, and this is the condition of his neshama in this world. Sheyasu chesed shalemes, that he should have the ability to do a kindness which is completely truthful and godly and connected to the truth without being involved in the materialism and the falsehood of the world. Ki ein emes ele Torah. Truth only comes if you're completely connected to Torah, detached of the materialism of the world. The emes Omar, the Medrash tells us that the attribute of truth actually said, Al Yivra, the world should not be created. Because the world is filled with falsehood. Chesed Omar, however, the attribute of kindness said, Yivra, there is value for the creation of the world. Because the world is filled with kindness. So what happened? Vatishlach emes arza, the Eibishter struck down truth to the ground, and va'olam b'chesed she'einu shel emes yibana, and a world of kindness which is not going to have the revelation of the truth of godliness all the time was constructed. Now, earlier generations, their main occupation of Aveda was their immersion in Torah. They were detached from the Gashmias of the world. Even their involvement in chesed and kindness, which means the sharing with other people in the world, getting involved in gashmias, but that was all included in their immersion in Torah, meaning it was with an attitude of the truth and the emes of godliness that was expressed in this act of kindness. The Hainu begodla ma'asa, with the power of Torah, the expression that Chazal say, great is the one that forces someone with the power of Torah to go ahead and do a mitzvah, that you have the power of Torah to get the mitzvah done, that in other words the mitzvah is done by the influence of the light or even force of Torah. The kaifin or memashkin chulu, you can coerce, you can force, and even financially force someone to fulfill Torah, which means the point there is apitaikiv Torah's emes hamirayim. This was the tremendous strength that there was in the generation of the Amirayim, that they were able to learn Torah, and the power of the words of Torah was so strong, and it was shining so bright that with that power you're able to force, so to speak, or draw people in to the truth of Torah, to be involved in the truth and to be detached from the materialism of the world. So that's the description of Deiros HaRishayim. Mashenkin because Mashiach, which is not the case in the later generations, which are before the footsteps of Mashiach is here. Shenafla Sukkos David and Nefalas Adafar. The Sukkos David, the Yidden, have fallen all the way down to the earth, to the lowest place, B'Bchinas Asiyah, down to the lowest level of action. V'Haveda Ikris, the main occupation of our Aveda today is B'Bchinas Kvayim Levad. It's an Aveda of action, an Aveda related to the heels, to the lowest. B'li Teiras Emes, without having that powerful influence of the truth of Torah, which is the Mishnayos, Ubraises, which includes also the Mishnayos and the Braises, the powerful words of Torah, Shehen Gatfin v'Yerechen, which are the wings of the Torah and the thighs of the Torah. So Azai, in these generations of Ikris the Mashiach, Roiv HaChesed Kekuloi, the overwhelming majority of the acts of kindness in the world, who Shalei Piteiras Emes. It's not with that influence of the power of the truth of Torah. In other words, of course, the Alter Rebbe here doesn't mean that a person is doing something, a kind of kindness against Torah. Rather, what he means to say is, it's not a kind of kindness which is with the motive and influence of just doing the truth of Torah, and that's all, without anything else involved. With that power of the Torah sort of forcing you and drawing you into doing what Torah wants. Rather, ki'im b'hiskara v'adas ha'iseh u'ritzayne yatev harachik be'emes. Rather, a person has to bring his entire focus and his mind close to the materialism and the place where his chesed is being done, and his will, his goodwill also has to get involved in this. Harachik be'emes, which is really very far from the source of what it should be, very far from the source of the truth of Torah. Ba'asher hu seif maiseh b'machshavat chila. But here the Alter Rebbe concludes, now this condition of the generations of Ikvis of the Mashiach, this is the end of action, this lowest level, but this is really connected, and this is really what entered the thought and the plan earlier and first before anything else. It's rooted much deeper. And the notz chilasan b'seifan, the beginning of the plan of all, the beginning of everything is wedged into the end in these generations. So therefore, there's the tremendous power of the Aveda of our generation, which the Rebbe will very much elaborate on what this is about. And then the Alter Rebbe concludes, V'gamin ein le'rak derech achas v'hi shfeila. And even if you only have this one route, this one way of fulfilling Torah mitzvahs in this kind of a way where you're involved with the materialism of the world and it's not with the motive and truth of Torah, it's just the action that you're doing, and the action gets done. Azai lenachmai, to console yourself, lekabel ba'ave, to accept this with love. Oi le'oirid or lefashbish b'maisav, or to awaken yourself and to search in your actions. V'loshav adavaya, to return, to do tshuva, to return to the Eibishter batzarlai, with this pain that you feel, v'yir v'chlai, and you'll be relieved. This is the words of the Alter Rebbe. So like you see, the words over here, in the way this Rishim is written, is not so clear 100% to understand, but the message here is very clear. The Alter Rebbe is addressing the Nefesh HaShvela, the lower souls of our generation that are involved just in Asiyah and in Gashmias, that there's tremendous value dafke to this Aveda. This is Seif Mais of Machshavet Chila. So the Rebbe continues. Der Teichen von die beide Teires is, the content of both of the Teires that Alter Rebbe wrote before he passed away is the Maila von Asiyah. It's the advantage that there is in the action, or in Gashmias, in the physicality of that action in the world. In der Igeres Ihr V'Chayoychat, in the letter Ihr V'Chayoy, redt wegen dem Geudel Meiles HaMitzvahs Maisies. There the Alter Rebbe speaks about the great advantage that there is in the physical actions of the mitzvahs. Ashehein Tachlis Yeridas HaNeshama Shleil Maza Gashmi. They are the entire purpose of why the neshama descends into this physical world. Vel not Tchilasam B'Seifan. The beginning, the highest, is wedged in the end, here in this physical world. Dafkin dem Seifan Asiyah, specifically here in the end, in the lowest of all worlds, the world of Asiyah, Ilam Haza Gashmi, our physical world, is Dot Chilasan. You have here the revelation of the beginning, the highest, which is the Koyach Ein Seif, the power of the infinite one, which is from Muhusay V'Atzmusay Shalamaytzel Baruch, the very essence of the Eibusha that creates everything. Valderach Zeh, and similar, is in Olam Hazeh Gufe, Ka'ahemshech B'Igeres HaKadosham, here in this physical world, Dafke, in Yisay Dachit Tachtain, within this physical world, in the lowest element of this physical world, which is Ha'afar, in the earth, is Dar the Koyach HaTzmicha. You have the power of growth, which is the fact that it keeps on growing endlessly, which is Ma'en B'Chinas Ein Seif, somewhat of an expression of the power of the infinite, of the Eibishter, which is Ein Seif, here that you see it Dafke in the lowest elements of this world. That's the idea that the Alter Rebbe discusses in the Igeres Ihr V'Chayoy that he wrote a few days before he passed away. Und der Teichen von der Rishim Nefesh HaShvele is, what's the content of this note that the Alter Rebbe wrote in Nefesh HaShvele, which in fact, in order to the Rebbe brings, the Alter Rebbe wrote even after Havdalah. The Alter Rebbe passed away, Motzei Shabbos, approximately 11:30 or 11:40, something like that. And the Alter Rebbe wrote this after Havdalah, a few moments before he passed away. So what's the content of this Rishime? V'yez darf zayin gemilas chasadim gashmiyim. That a person should be involved in the gemilas chasadim that he does, even though it's the motive and the involvement is with gashmiyas. Und die Aveda Dafke is der Seif Maise, was is Allah b'machshavet chila. And this is the end of all action, it's the lowest, but this is really rooted, and this is really the plan that entered higher in the Eibishter's machshave in creation. This is what the Alter Rebbe writes about days or moments before he passes away. Bald Alter Rebbe had geschrieben die zwei Teires samach listal kusai. So since the Alter Rebbe wrote both of these Teires very close to him passing away, it's verstandig, it's understood as teichen that their content direktais teirasai vavidasai von Alten Rebbe in jenem Zman, they express the Alter Rebbe's Teire and the Alter Rebbe serving the Eibishter that he was in that moment, in that time period. In the last moments when he was preparing his leaving from this world. So the obvious question here is, was ist the Sheiches from Meiles HaAsiyah zum Inyan HaStalkus? What is the connection of this subject, a Torah discussing about the advantage of the action of this physical world to this time period that Alter Rebbe was preparing for leaving this world? Seemingly it's the contrary is true. Histalkus is the siluk va'aliyah von Inyan Elamaza Gashmi. The idea of Histalkus is leaving and the elevating out of the physicality of this physical world. What's the connection to the Torah and the Aveda of the Alter Rebbe in this time period? Nachmer is the question here is even furthermore. In the Teichen for the Rishim in Nefesh HaShvele, in the content of what the Alter Rebbe is writing about here in this Rishim of Nefesh HaShvele, Ka'omar, as we just learned, is the Alter Rebbe Masber v'yez dav zayin gemilas chasadim gashmiyim, that there must be the gemilas chasadim which is involved in gashmiyas, vos rubam kekulam hem divrei sheker. The overwhelming majority of these gemilas chasadim are involved with falsehood. It's tamua. So if it's to that extent of sheker, so then this becomes very difficult to understand. How is this related to the Alter Rebbe? The life of a tzaddik in general are not physical material life the way we know it. It's spiritual life. Der Inhalt von Inyane Gashmis bei Tzaddik, the entire existence and content and meaning of any Gashmis that there is in the life of a Tzaddik is nar das, was durch sei, führt durch Inyane Anesham. It's just a vehicle for him to utilize the expression of what all of the interests and matters of the Neshama are. There's no such a thing as an entity of physicality in the life of a Tzaddik. This is true about his entire time period of his entire life. Most definitely is this this is true close to the time before he passes away as Gashmis, mitzadatzma, that the physicality itself, fanent by a tzaddik legamri kenartnet, it has absolutely no place in the life of a tzaddik. He brings here in Order 15, the Alter Rebbe said right before he passed away, he looked up at the ceiling and he said he doesn't see any ceiling. All he sees is the godly energy that's sustaining it. So at this time, the Alter Rebbe is speaking about the Gashmias and Maise. Und da meint der Alter Rebbe dafke bis michas das manes lakusai. Here, the Alter Rebbe is writing and demanding this right before he passes away, as mezoltan in mos chasadim gashmiyim, that you should be consoled and don't worry about this. You should be involved in this gemilas chasadim, even though it's involved with materialism. And anayfum von zutragen sich zu nyane b'nei beisai. Pay attention and be involved in those matters, paying the bills and your family and all the different things that may seem silly to you. Nicht wie sie werden getan, not als matare zum Ausführen an Inje von Teres Emes. And what the Alter Rebbe is saying over here is that your involvement in these matters is not going to be only in such a way that you're so involved in the truth and you're so involved in Teres Emes that it sort of spills over and it extends in this as well. If Teres needs me to do this as well, so I'll bring the truth of Teres and the guidance of Teres to be applied, whether it is to my family or whatever other matter it is. But rather, no kipshutam. This means literally, an eitze gashmis salib dem inyan gashmi alein. The fact that a person gives a good advice by gashmis, lends a helping hand to another yid or does something, even if it's not with that koyach of Torah and with that attitude or motive of Torah, but just literally pasha doing the physical mitzvah, the physical teva for another yid as it is, detached of the Torah, just in the gashmis itself. Maybe detached is too strong of a word, but akopanim in the gashmis itself. And therefore it appears, here the Rebbe clarifies, when the Alter Rebbe speaks about divrei sheker, it means that's because it seems like that he's just involved in the materialism aspect of it, so it seems to be something which is a falsehood. So the Alter Rebbe is encouraging this kind of Aveda, which seems to be so poor and so just involved in the Gashmis of the world, while the Alter Rebbe himself is, in this time of Istalkus, going higher and higher, removed from this world. So the Rebbe will give us a deeper understanding about what the life of a tzaddik is. First, let's understand what's this idea that the life of a tzaddik is completely spiritual. And then the Rebbe will bring us back to explaining what the chiddush over here in this rishime of, or first the Igeres of Yeh v'Chayei Echad, and then also the rishime of Nefesh HaShvele is about. That das verstehen, so we'll understand all this bahakte matoisus bir in the minyan anal, by first giving a further explanation, a deeper understanding in the point that was mentioned before. The life of a tzaddik is not material or physical life, rather it's spiritual life. The spiritual life of a tzaddik consists of his belief in Hashem, his fear or his awe of Hashem, and va'ava, his love for Hashem. Is nit verstandig, so the question here is, the avodah von Maisa mitzvahs, serving Hashem, which consists also, or maybe even primarily, of the action of mitzvahs, can doch getan werden nar mit dem Guf. It can only be fulfilled with a physical body, und mit dvarim gashmim, and with the physical objects that the mitzvah is done with. V'adarabba, on the contrary, loya medrash ikke, ela hamaisa. Medrash, the study of Torah and all the higher aspects of the ruchnius of a person's aveda is not the main focus. The main focus is the action. And wie sagt man, so how could it be said as chai at tzaddik, that the life of a tzaddik that's definitely also based on this kind of an approach, is then in chaim ruchniim, sheim emuneh, v'yireh v'ava, that it's just spiritual life of fear, of faith and awe and love for Hashem. What's obviously the tzaddik is occupied most of his time with Maisa mitzvahs. Is the beer in them? So the answer is there's no contradiction here at all. By a tzaddik, when it comes to a tzaddik, is the Aveda from Maisa mitzvahs nit an andere Sach von sein Aveda ruchnis. His Aveda of fulfilling the physical mitzvahs in action is not unassociated with his ruchni zega Aveda. It's not something different or not something else of his ruchni zega Aveda, which is the Amunah Yireh v'Ava, the faith and the awe and the love. Zay mekayim zay mitzvah saseh, when he fulfills a mitzvah saseh is a titzah von sein avos Hashem. It's a birth, or sort of it's an expression of his love for Hashem. And because he loves Hashem so much, so that's expressed in the fact that he does the mitzvah for Hashem's sake. Sein kiyum mitzvahs leisese, when he fulfills a mitzvahs leisese, a titzah v'siyum von Yiras Hashem. It's an outcome, and it's sort of the expression, it's the end of how the Yiras Hashem it comes out. Und das ist alt, and das alt is miyusadev amunas Hashem, and it's all based on emunah the Eibishter. Right? So in other words, the emunah and the yirah and the ave is really the only thing that matters in his life. The physical actions don't have any value onto themselves as a separate thing. They are there to fully express the Ava. If you love the Eibusher so much, so you act accordingly, or not only accordingly, you express your Ava even in your actions as well, like you express it in any other aspect of your feelings and whatever else it is. So it comes out in the actions as well. The actions is the last place it will be expressed, the lowest place it will be expressed. True. So in this sense, the Maisa is the lowest. But it's the lowest of what? Of the real involvement of the tzaddik, which is the Ava or the Yira and so on. So then why is it that we say that the action is the main focal point of the Aveda of Yid in this world? Because even if the whole Maisa is only here as a result of the Ava and the Yira, and it's only the seam, it's just the end of it. It's like the way it's expressed in the lowest element of the person, but nevertheless, it's dafka, the action that fully expresses really that his Aveda Ruchnis is real. Why? As the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, Hayes, as that is Oyevis Shem Hashem, in the words of the Alter Rebbe in Tanya in Perik Dalit, since the Yid loves Hashem, V'chov, it's l'dafka by be'emes, and he desires to cleave, to connect Hashem with the truth, in the true fashion, V'ev sh'l'dafka by be'emes, it's impossible to connect Hashem truthfully, Ki'im, B'kiyim, Remach, B'kudim, Shem, Remach, Ivarim, the Malka. Only through the way the Eibishter said to connect to Him, not through any spiritual ways of your own, but rather only through the Ramach mitzvahs that the Eibishter commanded to fulfill. The Alter Rebbe explains further in Tanya in Perik Lamed Hey, as the Dveikus B'Hashem, that the Yid's way to cleave to Hashem, durch Kiyum HaTorah mitzvahs, by fulfilling Torah mitzvahs, v'zei zen and Ritzay Noyes Barach, they are Hashem's will, is an inyan von Ashras HaShchina, that's when the Shchina dwells upon you. Whatever there's Masbe Barichis in connection to the Zayar that says about the Shchinte, the Shaya Areisha, the Shchina that dwells on the head of every single Yid. Was is Be'ein Areich Hecher von der Dveikus, so this kind of connection to Hashem is infinitely greater than any other kind of connection mitzad der hergische Ava von a mensch, of any other feeling, any other spiritual type of connection that a Yid, a Nivra, a created being may have. Whatever other connection you have with your Gof, even with your Neshama, it's still all you as a Metzias, as a created being, and therefore that's not the ultimate connection to Hashem. The ultimate connection is the mitzvahs. The Ribber fordert sein Ave. It's the Ave itself. His main focus is the Ave, his connection and his love to Hashem. But if he wants to have the true connection, so the Ave itself demands, as a Zoltan in Kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs, that's mainly achieved by the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. So yeah, Take, Chazal say it's going to be the Iker. But even when it becomes the Iker, why is it the Iker though? It's only the Iker because this is the best way and the most truthful way to express your Ave in the most powerful way. On the far, so therefore, is euch sein Avede in mitzvahs maisias, hanasas, al yidei guf mamish, even when it comes to the physical actions of the mitzvah that a person has to fulfill only with the physical body, literally. So Eisfir in the Kavana al Yaina, and he's doing this to fulfill Hashem's plan of creation. From the Sava Kadosh Baruch Hu liyas le'diri b'tachteinim, the Eibishter's desire that he wants a dwelling here in this low world. In Anoifen, but this is all in such a manner as it is mamshich oir v'ha'ares hashchine gam al gufay, that he brings down the light and the ray of shchine also in his physical body, and macht sein guf a keli tzuruchnius. He turns his body into a vessel to contain and to receive the revelation from above, which is oir v'ha'ares hashchine, the light and the ray of shchine that's coming down from above. That's the focus of the Yid's mitzvah. So this is another point that the Rebbe is adding here, besides what the Rebbe said before regarding the main point being the Ave. And the Ave is what demands the mitzvahs, but it's also regarding the attitude in Dira b'Tachtainim, that it's not really the value of the Dira in the Tachtain in itself, that there's something about the Tachtain that there you have the Eibishter, but rather taking that Tachtin and turning it into a Keli for the revelation of above, the Oir and Ha'ara of the Eibishter coming down into you. That's the focus of the Avodah of Tzaddikim. And even furthermore, the Rebbe adds, Biz as the Keli, Velechem Muzabin, so much so that the physical, the vessel of this world that you must have to fulfill the mitzvahs, Vet Eis Metzias Farzich, it becomes completely insignificant. It has no identity for itself. And here the Rebbe brings in Da'ara, the famous example for this regarding the shear of Hitzah, that the Keli that you might see has no shear if the main thing is the food that you're taking out. So the food is the shear and not the keli. The keli becomes completely insignificant. That's the focus of a tzaddik. So yeah, he's doing all the physical actions of the world. But those physical actions of the world have no mitzias b'chlal. They're just expressing, or they're just there as a keli for the real thing, which is the gilui, the revelation, the oir, and the ha'aras hashchina. So now here we come back to what Alter Rebbe, this novel approach, this fresh approach that Alter Rebbe tells us in this Yigeres Aviv V'Chayei Echad. So then kumtzu in Yigeres Iyu V'Chayei Echad. So here the Alter Rebbe adds in this letter of Iyu V'Chayei Echad, as in mitzvahs maisis is do noch a hecher inyan. They're here in the fulfillment of the physical mitzvahs. You have an even higher idea. There's something even greater here. As Geidel Milas HaMitzvahs Maisis, the greatness and the advantage that there is in the mitzvahs that you do in action, is mitzadem was der koyach ein soif is da dafke in Gashmias. The power, the infinite power of the Eibishter is found specifically here in the Gashmias. It's not that the Gashmias is going to become a keli for the Ruchnias and become bottle b'mitzias to the Ruchnias. Adarabbe, it's the Gashmias itself that you can find there, that's where koyach ein soif is. That Inyan, so this idea is nit mitzadem was the dove gashmi mit welchem metuta mitzvah. It's not about the fact that when you take a physical object and you fulfill a mitzvah with it, and so too when it comes to the physical body of the yid that has to fulfill the mitzvah. The idea over here is to elevate the body out of its entity of what it is and turn it into a vessel for something higher, to something spiritual. The dwelling of the Shechina that comes from above, not adarabah. On the contrary, the bir in Deri Geras is, in this letter, the Alter Rebbe explains, as dafke in the Yesh HaNivra, specifically here, in the Yesh HaNivra itself, in the physical itself, wo der Hergish von sein eigenem Metzias is betachlis, where the physical feels itself in the most ultimate form. As the Rebbe explains here, biz field visis chas v'sholem nit faran kin shum ilu v'siba acheres kedemes tzeim. The instinctive feeling and the natural feeling of a created being, of a physical a person or any entity in this world is that I'm here, I'm independent, I exist. And he doesn't sense that there's anything that created him. He doesn't sense that there's any source that brought him into being. He just feels himself as I'm here and I'm invincible. So what is this? Where does this come from? This type of a feeling. Dafke in this feeling itself, steht muhusay v'atzmusay shalamaytzel baruchu. This is really the presence of the essence of the Eibishter himself, because only by the essence of the Eibishter himself is this type of a feeling true. He is from himself. He's not caused and is not caused or brought into being by any other source or anything else. So this feeling that a Nivra has, such a powerful self-containment that I'm here, is really the presence of the essence of Hashem. That's what it is. Dafke in the Yesh, in the lowest, you can find and do a mitzvah there, Dafke, and find the essence of Hashem in this. Das heißt, what this means in other words is, what's the real advantage, the deeper advantage, when you fulfill mitzvahs physically in the action of the world, is mitzad geshem gufa. It's because there's something greater that's here in the physical itself. Und davon kommt heraus an Avodas Adam. There's a tremendous significance, there's a big difference in the attitude a person has in his Avodas Hashem. As a fil of an ayid is in a matzav, even if a yid finds himself in a condition, and this is again connecting back to the theme of the whole sikh in the beginning about the nefesh hashvela, a person finds himself in a low place. When felt nit kein hergish ruchni by kima mitzvahs, he doesn't feel any spiritual feelings in his mitzvah. Felt nit wie wird durch dem kima mitzvah davak lashem. He has no feeling of how this mitzvah is connecting him. Biz as ein kiyama mitzvah is durch eis an asiyah gashmis. His entire fulfillment of a mitzvah is completely, utterly just a physical action that he's doing. Euch dan is mit der posheta asiyah, with this simple physical action that he's doing what Hashem wants, dafken, specifically here in the physical, verbindt sich mit muhusay v'atzmusay shel hamaitzel. He's connecting to the very essence of the Eibishter, even more than any other revelations, because it's the essence of the Eibishter that's present dafke in the physical. That's the message over here, the real mila that there is, dafke in the fulfillment of mitzvahs gashmias. Now, this brings us back to the other Rishima that the Alter Rebbe wrote moments before he passed away. Das git euch as bare. So this also gives us an explanation in the Teichen from the Rishim and Nefesh HaShvela, and understanding the deeper idea of what this Rishim of Nefesh HaShvela, the Alter Rebbe wrote, is about. That a person should do the Gemilas Chasadim in physically here in this world. Even if it appears that he's doing things involved with the materialism of the world and it's not connected to the truth of Torah. He says further, he explains as that the world where there's kindness, even though it's not a world of truth, was constructed. The emes omar al yivra. And then he brings the Medrash that says that the attribute of truth said that the world should not be created, because the entire world is filled with falsehood. So what's the pshat in what the Alter Rebbe is saying here? It sounds like superficially that the Alter Rebbe is saying that there's no truth over here in this world at all. But the Rebbe will explain that that's not the case. We can say, the understanding of what the Alter Rebbe is saying here is not the way it may seem at first glance. As Chesed Omar, as Yivra, as Achvas Sheker. Chesed says that a world even of falsehood can be created, right? And therefore it's falsehood. So this is, if it's falsehood, there's no emes, there's no place for emes over here. And emes says it should not be created. On the contrary. And the Rebbe quotes the Lashon of the Rambam, Kol HaNimtzayim, all creations. This says Nevrayim, Vizizene Nimtza Lamata. The way the Rebbe started medayik, the word nimtzaim, the way they are created here in their lowly, in their condition here below. Loi nimtzu, were not created, from the truth of the Eibish's true existence. The Eibish's true existence, which is completely removed of our reality, that's the source of our existence here below. So you can't say that this is a world of falsehood. So what does this mean? What does this Medrash mean that the Alter Rebbe is quoting that the world is filled with falsehood? No, there be it is. So the answer here is as follows. It depends how you define truth. Das was emes amal yivra. When it says here that truth said that the world should not be created, is das nor mitzad midas emes. This is not the ultimate truth. This is the attribute of truth. When you have measured truth. The emes von Elokos, the seder shtalshlos. A truth that's only already a defined truth. Within the system of seder shtalshlos that has certain definitions, something that's truth in a certain condition. It's true based on a certain reality, a true in relation to something. But that's not ultimate truth. That's the idea of emes the seder shtalshlos. Within a certain system, so it's ausgehalten. Here it's true. Was is mit amida? That's a measured truth. A medide vagbal, it's a limited truth. Der emes, that kind of a truth, the greicht nor dort wo me dekent seiner Weihe emes. So this is a kind of truth which is dependent on the condition of this truth being recognized. So in the place where the truth is recognized, that's a condition where this truth is ausgehalten, where this truth holds. In another place, in another world where this truth cannot be recognized, so it doesn't hold at all. So it means it's sort of a conditional truth. It's sort of a truth that's dependent on something. It's not ultimately real and truthful. So being that our world is a world of falsehood, it's a world where the recognition of truth, the recognition of godliness is not apparent. The truth of Hashem is not recognized. Is emes omar, so this measured truth says al yivra, that there's no place for this. The truth does not reach there. It doesn't connect to this. But the real ultimate truth from the essence of the Eibishter himself has no limitations. It's not truth that's based on any conditions or any situation. It's truth in essence, wherever it is. It's the essence of truth. Der emes is nit begrenzt. It's not limited as men muss der kennen amitasi is barach. That it's truth only in a situation where the truth of Hashem will be recognized. Because even in a place of concealment, so much so the concealment is so powerful that falsehood seems to be it. And here the Rebbe explains how this is connected to the Midas HaChesed, and therefore looking at it from the perspective of Seder Shtalshus, of the existence of the world, the only value that this kind of existence has is the fact that there can be kindness done here. So what's really the truth about this existence? Is ba'amitis, ubipnimis, truthfully and deeper, is ein ganze Vereinigkeit, his entire existence, and to use the terms that the Rambam himself says, loy nimtzu, ella, meaning that it completely, utterly, every aspect of it is only me'amitisi matzai. It's the real ultimate truth of the Eibishter, which is the emes von atzmos. Not a truth which is midas emes in a certain condition, but truth which is not dependent on anything. A truth which is be'etzem true in any place, not in relation to anything, not relative to something else, but it's true be'etzem. And that's the truth that's revealed dafke here in this physical world. And therefore, what this means is, what Alter Rebbe was saying here in the Yigeres, in the Rishima, that is as follows. As afile in yoni b'nei beisai von Yidden, even those matters involved in matters of your house and your family, was that is in ze eisen, ze gashmias, and he's involved in this just for the motive is the physical, the material that has to be involved and tended to. Was the far zen ze eis v'divrei sheke, and therefore there seems to be a involvement of matters that are falsehood. Looking at it from the perspective of emes havaya, being a conditional truth, a place which recognizes truth, it seems like it has no connection to truth. But what's the truth? The real truth. But the connection to the truth of the Eibishter, the truth of the Eibishter is expressed and is here, even or in dafke, in this lowest place. Und das direkt sich in dem, it's expressed by this, as chosh der Yid filled nor de gashmis mit seinen Yane Elam Haza. Even though the Yid only senses and experiences his physical experience of whatever is in Elam Haza. Nutzt ze bepoil for an Yane Teve Kedusha. But nevertheless, in actuality, the gashmis of his family and his life and everything else, he uses them out for goodness and for Kedusha. So the fact that it's unconditional, meaning there's no feeling here, there's no understanding, there's no appreciation for what he's doing, but he's doing it anyways, even though the conditions that usually motivate and bring a person to doing it are not there. His motivation might be gashmius or selfish or whatever it is, and he's not involved in the truth. But b'payal mamish, he uses everything for what he wants, for what he has, that is, for kedusha. That means that here is expressed the unconditional truth, or I don't know if the right word is really unconditional. In other words, the truth of the Eibishter that's not defined, the undefined truth, the truth that comes out, the poil mamish, even in the gashmias of the world. This is what the Alter Rebbe is writing, and the lesson that the Alter Rebbe is telling us, practically what it applies to, as medafton in Gemilas Chasadim Gashmi, that a person should be involved in the Gemilas Chasadim, the physical things in his life, give advice from a distance in all matters of his house, nit areinlosing the kavanis von dem zweiten Yidden. So here, actually, it seems like the Rebbe is explaining what does Eitzis Merachak mean. Don't start analyzing and thinking, what are the intentions of this Gemilas Chasadim here? Is it pure? Is it not pure? If it's not pure, maybe I shouldn't be involved in this. Eitzis Merachak, do it. Begashmi is give the tzedakah, whatever it is, do it without getting involved in analyzing too much. Because even this kind of gashmis, which seems to be, if you take the measure of truth and you want to measure if this is recognized as truth or not, so it seems to be a world of falsehood, the truth of the Eibishter, the ultimate truth, the essence of truth, which is not related to any condition, is expressed afke here. Okay, so this is the explanation of both the Yigeres of Ivachayechad and the explanation of the Yigeres of, or the Rishime Nefesh HaShveli, where the Rebbe gives us a very deep understanding of what the Alter Rebbe was really saying here. So now the Rebbe will bring this back to how this is connected to the life of the Alter Rebbe, which wrote this moments before he passed away. The Rebbe gives the following introduction to explain that. Der Inyan, this idea, as oich sheker von olam haza nimmt sich von amitisi motzei, that even the falsehood of this world is really an expression, and really it's connected to the true existence, the emes of the Eibishter himself. This is something which is expressed primarily in the Aveda of Tshuva. Why is that? The Ikke Sheka von Olam Hazeh, where is the real falsehood of this world, is in the Zachen from Gimel Klippus Atmeis, those matters of things that are completely impure, of the three impure Klippus. The emes vasenzei, the godly life that sustains them, the truth of Hashem that's in them, is betachlis, hahelem, vahester. It's completely concealed. Was the fact, and therefore, usually you cannot elevate this. The godliness is so concealed there that there's no positivity, there's no meaning, there's no godliness that you can take out of here. It has to be completely rejected. But that's all a measured truth of godliness that doesn't reach there. Tshuva, though, accomplishes, as the Gemara says, that even premeditated sins become transformed into merits. One could reveal the holy sparks which are there embedded in and such things, even things that seem to be or are completely against the will of Hashem, the absolute falsehood of the world. And then through tshuva, you're able to transform that godly energy and elevate it and turn them into merits. How is this accomplished? This is accomplished specifically through tshuva because the tshuva of a yid connects to the very essence of the Eibishter. The tshuva comes from the essence of the neshama, and therefore it connects to the essence of the Eibishter. The essence of the Eibishter, Welt. Now you can reach even further, and it'll be sensed. What's the true existence of every single being in the world, with no limitations, even something which is outside the revelation of godliness and the measured truth of godliness, which is in certain conditions, even over here in the lowest place, including even such a low place of premeditated sins which are against Ratzon Hashem. So the godly energy that's there in that Aveda, so that you'll see over there the truth that's there. So therefore these godly sparks in this Aveda, Nis'ala and Kedusha, it gets elevated into holiness. So that's regarding the tzeitzis that's in the Aveda. The Baal Tshuva, the same happens, and the same is true regarding the Baal Tshuva himself. Even though as Begoli is given abgerissen von Elikus, outwardly he was completely torn away and separated from godliness durch seine chatoim, through his Avedis. So if you want to look at that level of connection a Yid has that's limited or measured, so then he's been cut off. But nevertheless, even while he sinned, his essential connection remains. Was kommt zum Ausdruck? Begalloi in sein Umkehren sich zu dem Eibischen, nachdem es gewesen abgerissen. And that's really what's being expressed when later, when he does tshuva and he returns to the Eibishter. So what does it mean that he's returning? What's the title of the words returning? As the Rabbi emphasizes the word here, umkehren. Returning means that this is really who he was the entire time. So tshuva is not only about expressing a deeper and new connection to Hashem now when he does tshuva. It's really expressing the truth that was always there even while he did Aveda. So therefore tshuva, even in the person himself, expresses how b'shas Aveda, he is connected. Tshuva is just revealing that. So therefore the tshuva is revealing the truth of the Eibishter in the lowest place of the person's condition when he did Aveda. And it's for this reason, as oich der iloy anal in dem Yesha Nivra, that this advantage and this high expression of the essence of the Eibishter that's here, in the lowest yesh, in the existence of this physical world, from Gashmi Selam Azeh, the physicality of this world, was the Alter Rebbe is mevayer in Yigeres Yiva Chayei Echad, which Alter Rebbe speaks about and explains in this letter of Yiva Chayei Echad, ver tehet be'ikeh by a Baal Tshuva. This idea will be something that will be sensed primarily by a Baal Tshuva, because a Baal Tshuva is someone that experienced this. A Baal Tshuva, his whole Tshuva is a result of this, that truth that was there in him the entire time was the cause of his Tshuva, was the cause why he then went and returned to do Tshuva. So therefore by a Baal Tshuva this is sensed more than anybody else. So now we come back to the connection to the Alter Rebbe, specifically why the Alter Rebbe is writing about this. This is the connection of this letter of Yiva Chayei Echad mit der Rishime Nefesh HaShvele, and also with the letter, or with the Rishime Nefesh HaShvele, zum Zman HaStalkes von Alten Rebbe, to this time when the Alter Rebbe passed away. Der Ilui beswert areisgebrachten Avedas HaTshuva, this tremendous level that comes out through the Aveda of Tshuva al Zedainus, specifically when it comes to literally Avedas on this level of premeditated sins, is primarily Nidoba Atzadik Mitzad Atzmai. A Tzadik does not have this on his own. He doesn't fall, he never is in such a place. Aber durch dem, was bringt der Zweiten zu Tshuva, but through this, that a tzaddik brings someone else, influences someone else to do Tshuva, bekommt euch demile. a tzaddik will reach and get also this milah, this advantage of revealing the level of godliness, the essence of Hashem in this low place, the tzaddik will get that advantage as well. Wie bald as hat gebracht dem zweiten to ton tshuva, because since he's the one that influenced the other yid to do tshuva, so he receives that level of connection of tshuva as well. And in Hara 35, the Rebbe says this is based on a Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, similar to a Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. When you influence another yid, so you can you have a hold in that's something that you get that revelation as well. No, the ikira gilui from Mailas HaTshuva is dafke samach lislakusai. However, the primary time when this level of tshuva by a tzaddik is revealed is closer to the time when he passes away. When es kommen sich zusammen kol ma'asav v'terasa v'avidasa she'avad kol yemei chayav. When all of the work and all of the Torah and Aveda of a tzaddik that he worked all of his lifetime all comes together and it's getting elevated. Ubefrat, and especially as we bald steht dann in der Tnur von tshuva. At the time before a tzaddik passes away, so his neshama and the life of a tzaddik is then in the movement of returning, of tshuva, to return to the Eibishter. The spirit within him is returning to Hashem from where it was given from. Is much more than in any other time. Vert by a tzaddik, so therefore this is at this time by a tzaddik, what happens is, especially by such a kind of a tzaddik, dealing with Alter Rebbe here, that occupied himself with bringing Yidden, influencing other Yidden to do tshuva, nizgale in sein tnuas tshuva. This is revealed in his moment of his tshuva, the tshuva of his neshama returning to the Eibishter. So even though this is not a kind of a tshuva like it is kipshuta, tshuva of Zedainis, but now in his moment of his tshuva, of his neshama returning, also, this advantage of the tshuva kipshuta that a tzaddik receives from others that he influenced to do tshuva, it's mostly revealed and emphasized at that moment when he is in a tnuah of tshuva, when he's returning to the Eibishter. So therefore this is exactly over here the way it is by the Alter Rebbe. Says Yedua, so it's known. Was the Alter Rebbe hat gesagt, the Mittleren Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe told his son, the Mittleren Rebbe, Azayin, that the Alter Rebbe's oiftu, his accomplishment, Lagabi Magid, in comparing to the Magid, Bashtet them, consists of this, was that gelegen in Machen Bali Tshuva, that he was involved, deeply involved, gelegen, he was involved in making Bali Tshuva. Und wie Kvaktish is Marivachami Admur is Meirech wegen dem in sein Siche. Friedrich Rebbe speaks about this at length in a Siche, a very interesting Siche. Take a look and look at the Diburim, a dream, ganze Meise, which the Alter Rebbe, his main focus was Bali Tshuva. On the Rebbe, so therefore, Dafke Samech Listal Kusay, specifically in the time before he passes away. When by him is zugekommen der Gilui von Kol Maisav Chulu, and by him now all of his Aveda is revealed, Uba Eifen von Tshuva, and this is a moment of Tshuva by the Alter Rebbe, his Neshama is returning. Is Teirasoi Gilui Hamailo from Gashmias. So the Alter Rebbe's Teire is revealing. What does the Alter Rebbe write about? He's writing about that special kayach that's revealed by a Baal Tshuva, which is the advantage that there is, the presence of the Eibishter Dafke in the Gashmias. And therefore it's required that a person should be involved in the Gashmias, the types of Gemilas Chasadim. Because it's only here that you connect, or you become one with the essence of the Eibishter himself. That's what the Alter Rebbe is writing about. So it's very much in sync with the time period that the Alter Rebbe is in. And the Rebbe connects this also to Yud Shvat. Chof dal Teves is allem ochal in den Woch von Shabbos Mevarchem HaChodesh Shvat oder gleich b'motzei Shabbos Kodesh Zeh. Chof dal Teves always falls out either in the week of Shabbos Mevarchem, the month of Shvat, or it could be at the Motzei Shabbos of this Shabbos Mevarchem. Wie bekvir Shana Zu, like in this year when the Rebbe said the Sicha, or perhaps when the Sicha was printed. Was in dem Chodesh b'Yom HaSiribay, in the month of Shvat, in the 10th day of Shvat, is the Yom HaYilula from Kvektushis Marvicham Yadmor, is the yard set of the Friedrich Rebbe. So that man we can see, as Eich in the Divrei Torah was hat Reis gegeben Liyom Mistal Kusay, that also the Friedrich Rebbe. So he gave to print the Maimah, the Torah, for the day that he passed away. The Maimah Dibra Maskal Basi Legani is Mudgish the Teichanana. And even though it's a time that his neshama is going up and leaving this world, but nevertheless, it's very much emphasized this point that we're speaking about here. On the Maimah was die Welt is Gani Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Maimah right away begins with the fact that it's this world, Dafka, the lowest world, which is Hashem's garden. Weil ikke Shchine betachteinem. So the primary presence of the Shchine is specifically here below. Was gan, what's the significance of this expression, a garden, is an art nit nar fundire. It's not only a place of dwelling, farin yonem amochrachim, where a person lives and he has his basic necessities, nor says an art funtaino. It's much deeper. It's a place of pleasure. When a person is there fully with his full essence and his full pleasure, it's the essence of the Eibishter that's specifically here in the Gashmias. Und die Sibyl is, and the reason for this is, Hashem desired to have a dwelling over here in this lower world. Der Nisave und Tainik von Atzmus, the taiva, the desire, the pleasure of the very essence of Hashem is Dafken Tachtainim, specifically here in the lowest worlds. In der Avede von Olam Haza, Tachten Shein, Tachten Lamata Mimeno, in the lowest of all of the worlds. Und dort Gufe is Amaisu Oeker. And in this lowest world, it's the lowest element of the world, action is the primary focus. As Muzol Zachar uplosen in Olam, that one should go down into the lowest elements of the world. Und dort Nishtus de Lomaze, and there itself in the foolishnesses of the world. Oiftan, and to accomplish durch der Avede von Stus de Kedusha, by utilizing the irrationality in the positive, in the holy way, l'mayla mitam v'das, without calculating and thinking, as von Sheker ha'olam, that from the falsehood of the world, sollen aufgestellt werden. One should construct and build Krashim the Mishkan, the Krashim, the walls for the Mishkan, as the Friedrich Rebbe explains in the Maimah, that von Sheker, of the falsehood of the world, soll man machen Keresh, you transform it into a Keresh, a Mishkan v'dira loy izbarach. A Mishkan, a dwelling for the Eibishter over here in this world.